our next subject, the new defensive coordinator for Maryland, Ted Monachino, I believe. He has been hired as the new defensive coordinator for Maryland. If you would recall, the old defensive coordinator took the job. Where was it? A Group of Five school. He took the job at because there was rumors that he was going to be fired, so that way the school could hire Mel Tucker. The school did not get Mel Tucker approved, so the coach left, and now they needed to hire a defensive coordinator. Zack, Ted Monachino has been around a lot of different places, been a defensive analyst in college. He was a defensive line coach at North Carolina. I believe last year was
Mm-hmm.
his first year doing that there. He's been with the Ravens. He's been all over the NFL. He's been all over college. One of those guys that kind of like a Jed Fisher a little bit, actually, just kind of pops around, goes to a bunch of different places. I like that they have somebody with experience. I'll say that. I like that they didn't just go
Mm-hmm.
get somebody who's super young and maybe doesn't have the experience to be able to build a defense in this short period of time. But I do have questions about Ted. However, I know you have more questions than me, so I'll turn it over to you for that part.
Well, so before I do my characteristic, tear a new one for Maryland, I will say this. I think I think Ted Monachino as a coach is good. Like, I think you said it really well. He has a ton of experience. I mean, he's been coaching since 1991. He's coached at the high school level. He's coached at the lower college, like lower colleges
First
like
first
TCU.
college job was TCU.
Yeah, which is what they were, probably either group of five or,
They were, yeah.
yeah, they were group of five at that point. He was at JMU for a year. Um, he's he's been at several conferences. He's been in the NFL. So in terms of his experience, I think it is a good hire in terms of being a seasoned veteran in coaching. Here is my problem. And I think part of the problem is a result because of how Maryland botched this whole thing in the first place. Which I think that's the biggest issue with this is a result of a botch. So it's like, who's the best person we can get?
If those rumors are true, there's still just rumors. Nobody came out and said we wanted Mel Tucker, but
No,
yes,
but
I agree.
but the botch even of they lost a defensive coordinator to a group of five. I don't care how they lost him. Like
Yeah,
that's either they should have fired him and gotten someone new back in December or January, or they should have, found a way to keep him. But this whole half seas, like, when we want you, we don't. I don't care how it happened. Like, they lost somebody to a group of five school. That's a stain. I don't care. Um, not to. Sorry, this is where
no,
I
go
start
ahead,
to get
go ahead.
animated. He's been a defensive coordinator once in the NFL. So, again, year of experience, great. Was bottom 10 in passing defense and bottom 10 in rushing defense. Like, that's where I just kind of scratch my head. He's been a defensive line coach. He's been an analyst. Like, the past 3 years, he's been the Atlanta Falcons linebackers coach. He's the defensive analyst for North Carolina and then a defensive line coach. And I'm looking at the Wikipedia page.
His longest time he was at someplace was with the Ravens for 5 years.
Yeah. I don't get the sense that, like, I think there have been times that he's been welcomed back. Atlanta Falcons, it doesn't say that he left on his own accord or that he was fired, but he did not return to Atlanta
Yeah,
in 2020 or in 2023. So he's at North Carolina. He was elevated to defensive line coach after the dismissal of Gene Chizik, or dismissal of Tim Cross. Sorry, and now he's Maryland's defensive coordinator, and it's like,
let me give you a counter and see what you think about this. I'm not necessarily saying I believe this counter, but I will fight for the other side. Um, Brian Williams, so that was the coordinator. I looked him up there. Brian Williams had only really been at DC in high school, before becoming a defensive analyst and then a linebacker coach for 3 years at UAB. And then he became the outside linebackers coach to defensive line coach to co-DC to defensive coordinator for the past 3 years. I mean, like, I agree with you. The Colts situation was bad. I also think sometimes people just go to the Colts and the Colts are bad. Like, trust me, I'm a fan. I know they're bad. But as far as I'm concerned, like, the experience might make him better in general than Brian Williams. I'm not saying it's the best hire in the world. I'm not saying that they're going to have massive success with him. It's still better than Brian Williams, though, don't you think?
Maybe. My issue with this hire, though, is the process. That's my biggest issue with
You don't
this.
like that they had to hire somebody because he left. You would have rather them hired somebody and then moved Brian Williams on his way out.
Yeah, well, not only that, but it's to get someone who's more short. And I get Maryland it's not the greatest job in the world. But you're in the Big Ten. You've got resources. Why are we getting someone who's had 1 year of defensive coaching experience? Why are we getting left at the altar by a group of 5 school? That's my big question.
Yeah, I mean, they got left. If the rumors are true, they got left because Mike Locksley, probably managed this, or somebody, whether it was Mike Locksley or somebody else, managed the situation incorrectly.
Yeah.
And word got leaked out to Brian Williams, and he figured it out, and he said, "Well, I got to get out of here. Like, I got to be somewhere else, otherwise I'm getting fired next year."
So is Ted Monachino maybe a better possibility than Brian Williams? Maybe, and that net positive, I would say. But my bigger question is the whole operation just feels wrong. And that's like, yes, you got a guy who might end up being better out of sheer luck. But why, how could Maryland could be so much better? I think that's so everybody get, this is the big thing.
That is the crux of everything here. Maryland has enough talent around them. They could be better. I don't know if they have, I mean, based on the basketball situation right now, it seems like they are supporting the football program enough for them to be better. But
yeah, that's so people who think that we're Maryland haters, like, this is my frustration is I'm not a Maryland hater. I want Maryland to be good. I want them to be up to their potential. And I think you do too. Yeah. And this hire to me screams, we don't want to get better.
It screams. I don't know who they could have hired to really be a great situation. So that's kind of the grace I give them there, where it's like, I don't know who they would have hired, but I agree with you. It's more the case of, I don't like the situation, like what you did to get into this situation, more than this situation, you handled it incorrectly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And yes, Zack is a Mike Locksley hater, but we did convert him from a PJ Fleck hater. So
it's true.
There is hope. Hope he can be converted.
Yes. I want to like Locksley. I know this is like, people are like, no, you don't. If Locksley won 9 games this year, I'd be like, dude, coach of the year. Like, if they won 7 games this year or 8 games this year, I'd be like in the running for coach of the year. But the problem is, I feel like they've underachieved when they've had really good rosters, and when they haven't had good rosters, they get blown out by Northwestern.
Fair. And then they beat USC later that year.
Yeah, which then tells you they have talent.
But this was every year, though. They would lose to somebody, and then they would get Ohio State to overtime. They would lose to somebody that they shouldn't have lost to, and then they would take Michigan down to the wire when Michigan goes 15-0 and wins a national championship. This is what the program is under Mike Locksley. It's not that Mike Locksley can't get his team to perform well and can't get good players. He obviously can. He's shown it in spurts. It's that the team doesn't remain consistent for the entire year, and guys are not developing at the pace. Historically, they're not developing at the pace in which they should to, adhere to their recruiting rankings, which I don't always fault teams for,
Mhm.
because I do think recruiting rankings are off sometimes and you can't always predict the draft, right? But when it happens time and time and time again, that does reveal something to me. So,
Yeah.
Zach, we need to move on. Any final thoughts on Mike Locksley hiring Ted Monachino?
I think just I've said it before and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. Sometimes you just are who you are. And that's what I feel like this situation has revealed. It's like sometimes, Mike Locksley, until he proves otherwise, he just is who he is. And this is further proof of that.
And we want him to be better. We
Yeah.
want him to be better.
Yeah.
I will end it with this. I will end it on a positive note for Maryland fans. I don't want to just end it by talking, how terrible he is and everything. Terrell Suggs, former Ravens defensive lineman, did have this to say about the hire of Ted Monachino. He said, "Monumental, the keystone, if you ask me." Terrell Suggs says about Monachino's influence: "He revamped my career." Referring to Monachino, he said, "As a master educator and master motivator, and their relationship is built on trust and truth." Now, a lot of this is not actually full quotes. A lot of this is like I said, pieces and parts kind of that I'm going at here. This is probably the most full quote we get. "It's definitely a winning formula, and I love the guy," Suggs said when they reunited in 2010. "I would play for him with one arm. I'm just flattered that I'm his player again." Now, that was back in 2010. But, I mean, that's a good reference from a
Yeah.
very good NFL player. So
Yeah.
there's hope.
Yep. Yeah. I think he's
Maybe,
a good coach. I just don't. Yeah.
maybe Mike Locksley hit one out of the park.